If you're in the market for a pre-made Pokemon TCG deck, whether that is the entry-level EX decks or the hyper-competitive League Battle decks, there's some information you should know about rotation before you make a purchase. In particular, if you plan on playing competitively, whether that is at an IRL event or playing on Pokemon TCG Live, you should know this information regarding rotation before you make that purchase. I'm Jeff from inthirdperson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, let's talk about rotation and how it affects these pre-made deck options. I know I used League Battle Deck in the title. That's the one that's probably going to be the most popular, but we'll touch on all the pre-made decks here. Before we get to that though, we do have to do a quick primer on what standard format is. Standard format is the primary way that people play the Pokemon trading card game. And if you imagine modes like single player, multiplayer, survival mode in a video game, standard format is kind of like that. Now, it's basically the regular rules of the Pokemon trading card game, but it only encompasses a subset of cards, and it's usually the newest 2 to 3 years worth of cards. And we can tell which cards are standard legal based on the tournament marking on the bottom left-hand corner. In the circle on that Mew VMAX, the bottom left-hand corner, there's a letter E, and pre-rotation, the letters E, F, and G are tournament legal. However, once a year, there is a process that is called rotation, where the oldest cards are moved out of standard format, making way for new cards, new strategies, without necessarily having to worry about how new card balances with a card from 20 years ago. So that's why older cards are taken out of the standard format. That being said, if you want to play with older cards, you can still play in expanded format, where cards from Black and White onwards are legal for play there. However, Pokemon TCG Live currently doesn't support proper expanded, and IRL events might be hard to come by in terms of playing expanded because most official events are standard these days. So League Battle decks, Deluxe decks, you can still play them casually. You can still play them in expanded once they rotate out. But for the purposes of playing right now in a competitive format or on PTCG Live, the older ones just aren't going to work anymore. So the rotation is going to be happening on Thursday, March 21st, 2024 on Pokemon TCG Live, and in IRL events, it's going to be happening on April 5th. And the cards that are rotating out are everything with regulation mark E. And I show some sets here. It doesn't really matter because we're talking about the decks. So let's talk about which decks are going to be rotation safe and which ones are not. Let's start with Miraidon. Miraidon's totally safe. It's the super popular one. Miraidon is one of the top decks in the format right now, and people are really excited about this one and upgrading it to be a tournament level deck. Do not worry about the rotation with regards to this deck. It's going to be fine. Palkia is mostly safe. You're going to be losing about 9 cards, but they're not that big of a deal for the most part. Echoing Horn is a one-of tech, and not every Palkia deck plays it. Battle VIP Pass is one of the big losses across the board, but you can probably play a set of nest balls and you'll be fine. There's a new Battle Puffin or like Buddy Puffin card that recently got revealed that sort of works like Battle VIP Pass, but because this deck is a little more reliant on big basic Pokemon, that card probably isn't going to work here, so nest ball should be fine. Clara is a one-of tech card that it's a good card. It lets you grab up to 2 Pokemon and 2 energy from your discard pile back into your hand, but it's kind of in here mostly to cover up the limitations of the number of holo cards in here, to cover the fact that you've only got a 3-2 line of Palkia mostly, so not that big of a deal. Losing Melanie does suck though, right? Melanie lets you attach a water energy to one of your Pokemon V and draw 3 cards. The energy is attached from the discard pile. There is no real substitution for that, so it does kind of suck. It does make this deck a little less consistent. However, Palkia does have energy acceleration of its own with the Star Portal V-Star power, so it's not necessarily the end of the world. Palkia is going through a little bit of a resurgence right now, and I think Palkia will still be pretty good going forward. As long as you've got a game plan for replacing these 9 cards, you should be okay. This is the big one. Mew VMAX. It is a very strong deck. It has been strong since it first came out back in 2021, I believe. And is it 2021? Anyway, it's been strong since it came out back in the Fusion Strike days, and it is not rotation safe. Now, if you're watching this before rotation, theoretically, yes, you could go buy a Mew VMAX deck right now, upgrade it and go win the next regionals tomorrow or win whatever major tournament, because Mew VMAX is just that good. And in that sense, yeah, maybe buying a Mew VMAX pre-rotation is worth it for you. However, it's not going to survive the rotation pretty much at all. All of the Pokemon are rotating out. Almost all of the trainers are rotating out. You're really just going to be left with stuff like Boss's Orders and Double Turbo Energy and Choice Belts, and you can't really do anything in standard format with this deck after rotation. So keep that in mind. If you're going to be playing a lot before rotation and you think this is the deck to get you over the top, by all means, go for it. But if you've got longer term aspirations for your Pokemon TCG journey, then Mew VMAX probably isn't it going forward. There are also a whole bunch of other older League Battle decks that I've got pictured here, some even older than this, the Sun and Moon era ones with like Pikarom, Reshizard, and Zacian, which you can't really find in a store anymore. Those are not at all safe for rotation. Those have all rotated out. And then the Inteleon deck here, that has since rotated, so nothing in there is standard legal post-rotation going into 2024. And then the Calyrex decks and the Urshifu decks are all rotating out as part of this upcoming rotation. So really the only decks you should be considering in the League Battle deck category are Palkia and Miraidon, and only Mew if you are planning on grinding it out in the immediate term and think you've got a good shot at winning whatever event you're playing before rotation. Moving on to the Deluxe Battle decks, the two newest ones that are set for release in March of 2024, the Zapdos and Ninetales decks. Those are safe. However, the Meowscarada and the Quaquaval ones are not. They're mostly safe. So let's look at Meowscarada first. This one gets impacted a bit more. The following cards are getting rotated, so you're losing the Eldegoss line as well as Clara and Escape Rope. Now, the Eldegoss line isn't that big of a deal. If you were going to upgrade this deck anyway, you probably weren't going to play the Eldegoss line in there. Clara is kind of annoying, but it's not necessarily a staple in Meowscarada anyway, at least in current competitive builds. And Escape Rope, you can kind of switch out with any number of switch options, including the upcoming Prime Catcher. As for Quaquaval, that one loses a little less. You're losing 2 copies of Clara and 2 copies of Escape Rope. Again, Clara, not that big of a deal. If you're upgrading this, you're probably just going to play the correct counts of Pokemon anyway. And then Escape Rope, there are just a bunch of other switch options in the game, so not that big of a deal. EX decks, also safe. And just for the record, these are level 1 products, and there are some other level 1 decks that came out before these. You don't necessarily have to worry too much about these. Like, yes, technically chien-pao, maybe you want to build a deck around chien-pao, and chien-pao is still pretty good, all things considered. But generally speaking, if you are looking to play competitively, you will probably skip this category of deck and you'll get a Deluxe or a League Battle deck that's a little more complete rather than these. These are going to be fine for just learning how to play the game. So don't worry too much about rotation if you're just starting out and you're playing a beginner level deck like an EX deck. As for the V Battle decks, these are not at all safe for rotation. The last of these decks, like the Zeraora, Deoxys, I know there's a Gardevoir VMAX one, or Gardevoir V, and a Blastoise, and all that stuff. Those are not safe at all for rotation. So I would not buy any of these products if you have any ambitions of playing on Pokemon TCG Live or in an IRL event in the future, because we are going to be losing a lot of cards in rotation from these that make them basically unplayable. And there we go. That is a look at the pre-made decks, League Battle decks, Deluxe decks, and all of the other pre-made decks that you can find in the store right now with regards to rotation. Again, rotation is going to be happening on March 21st, 2024 on PTCG Live, and April 5th in IRL events, and you should know what you are getting into when you buy a pre-made product, whether or not you can actually use it in Pokemon TCG Live or live events. So I hope this information helped you out with your purchase. Let me know in the comments below if you found this helpful. Are you excited to know that the deck you were planning on buying is safe? Are you disappointed to know that the deck that you're buying is not safe? Let me know. But for now, I gotta get going. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me on all the things. Oh, I hit the wrong button. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at In Third Person. You can find me on Twitch at In Third Person, where I stream the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. So until the next one, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.